Hello, welcome back. Today we have got by-election action happening as time of recording will be happening tomorrow, which we're going to have a quick look at. And we also had a new poll came out yesterday, which it leads to quite interesting reading. We'll go over that as well. Before we get into all of that, I wanted to say I made my other video, my currently only one other video. So if you haven't seen it yet, please do go and check it out on the channel. But yesterday I did a video going over or looking ahead to the local elections that are happening across 30 odd councils in England next May, in May 2025, and trying to use the general election result from 2024 and current polling for Westminster to extrapolate from that data how the local elections might go in May. I should have mentioned at the time in that video that doing that is to a certain extent fraught with folly. General election polling, opinion polling for Westminster is not a perfect proxy for how people will vote in local elections. Constituencies are broken down, of course, into smaller wards for local elections where certain voter concentrations are much different. So you can have a very solidly Conservative area that will have wards that are very solidly Labour, and you can't get that data out of polling for Westminster. So I should have said that yesterday, just to bear that in mind when you're watching that video and when we go through some bits in this video. And also I should have said yesterday that I've been using the Election Maps UK website for the videos. Very good website, good data, interactive, easy to use. I'll leave a link to their website in the description. I also only just noticed that my channel is named very similarly, Election Watch UK. No affiliation with Election Maps UK. That's that happened by accident. Right, so moving on then. The first thing we'll start with is the polling that came out yesterday. So it's only one poll from More in Common, and as we can see, it suggests that the Tories have taken a lead over Labour of 2%. Maybe a little bit of a new leader bounce there for the Tories as Kemi Badenoch's come in the last week or so. Reform up by 1 to 19% too, and the Lib Dems sliding back towards 11%. Look, it's one poll. I'm not sure if this is all that accurate. I'm not entirely convinced the Tories are ahead of Labour yet. They're probably, if anything, slightly neck and neck, or maybe Labour is slightly leading. But we do know Labour have become a lot more unpopular since the general election, and as far as vote share goes, they weren't particularly popular then anyway. But with that in mind, if we run those numbers through the electoral calculus prediction tool, that would deprive Labour of a majority by quite a decent amount. They would be 33 short. They would still be the largest party in the House of Commons, but obviously the Conservatives would be the big winners of the day, winning 125 seats, and it would have to be, in order to form a government, it would have to be some form of a Liberal, Democrat, Labour coalition government. So that's interesting to look at. It's, like I say, one poll, but I do think that the direction is about right. The Labour are sliding, Conservatives are increasing, although I think Labour are sliding more than the Conservatives are increasing. I think at the moment that most of Labour's vote is going to Reform. I think Reform may have been slightly underestimated in this poll. I think they would do better than just picking up 3 seats if there were a general election. I don't think they would be, being the largest party or anything like that, but I think they would do a bit better than 8. So yeah, there's that. So on to the by-elections that are happening tomorrow on the 14th of November. Most of these are going to be quite simple, quite easy, but it's going to be interesting to, with that poll in mind, to see after the elections. We'll have a look on Friday or at some point afterwards. We'll have a look at what happened to Labour's vote share in these by-elections. You can see Labour are up to defend most of these handful of seats that are coming up for by-election tomorrow. So yeah, we'll have a look and see what happens to Labour's vote share and where it goes and who picks up votes, and indeed if Labour can hold on to these councillors. So we're going to go through this list. The first one actually is quite interesting, Culver and Longstone. So this is currently held by the Greens. In 2023, there was only 2 candidates on the ballot paper, so it was just a straight shootout between the Conservatives and the Green Party, and the Green Party pipped the Conservatives to the post by about 10%, only 80 odd votes in it, so fairly close in terms of raw vote numbers. Um, but this time I did look to see the candidate standing tomorrow, and there is a Labour candidate on the ballot paper tomorrow. So that might help the Conservatives by diluting that left wing vote slightly. Because as we say, there's only 80 votes in it. They don't need too much. Assuming their own vote share can stand up, they wouldn't need too much to dilute the vote and get them ahead again. The other thing that may go in the Tories' favour, bearing in mind what I just mentioned about using Westminster polling, we looked yesterday at Derbyshire Dales. It's one of the constituencies in that Midlands/North area where the Conservatives are currently predicted to make a bit of a comeback and to flip this constituency back from being Labour by about a 5% majority at the moment. So things may be looking up for the Conservatives in this one. Next, we're up to Scotland. So the next two are Scottish. The next three are Scottish wards, and there's one down here, Whitburn and Blackburn in West Lothian is also Scottish. We'll do those four next. Doon Valley, I think, will be a Labour win. I had a look. They comfortably won it previously, and it seems like a fairly safe Labour area. Kilmarnock might be a little bit closer for them. In 2022, Labour won it ahead of the SNP, but only by less than 4%, as you can see there. This website, Ballot Box Scotland, is predicting that it's likely to go Labour, but interesting to see the slim margin of victory 2 years ago. And again, if we go to the general election results for 2024, so this is from July. Labour won the Kilmarnock constituency by a pretty healthy 12% margin, beating the SNP and flipping that from an SNP controlled constituency with a majority of 5,000. But with the reduction in Labour's popularity, including in England and north of the border, they're now only 3% and a bit ahead. So again, that reduction in Labour's popularity, their slumping poll numbers, sort of bringing them into danger. The SNP haven't really surged here. The SNP aren't particularly popular at the moment either. They're only up by 0.5%, but Labour's slide is bringing them into the clutches of the SNP at the Westminster level. But I think it's interesting when we take that into consideration with the fact that Labour only sort of just won it by a fairly small margin in 2022. Be interested to see what happens here. The SNP might be on to a winner with this one. The other two Scottish ones, I think, are probably going to be Labour wins. This is the West Lothian one. Again, they only won it by 4.6% in 2022. So again, it's another slim margin. It could be one where the SNP have a look in. In terms of the parliamentary data, this one's much safer for Labour. This whole area around Lothian is fairly, they have a decent lead. They did manage to flip Mid Lothian back from the SNP in the general election quite handsomely again. And as far as the polling now stands, they're still pretty far ahead, 10% ahead. So I think less of a look in here maybe for the SNP, but again, given the slender margin of victory in 2022, the SNP might be in with a look in on that one as well. Lastly is this Colinton and Fairmile Head in Edinburgh. I think Labour will probably win that. You can see they won it by a decent margin, 20% in 2022, beating the Conservatives there. Again, this Edinburgh constituency, Edinburgh South, pretty safe for the Labour Party, just there. 17,000 majority, no change really in the now cast, very far ahead. So I think that one will go to Labour as well. So that's all the Scottish ones done. The next ones we can pretty quickly skip through. Greenwich and Chipping Norton will both go to Labour. Greenwich, they won it by a mile previously with a large share of the vote. Redbridge also in London will be a Labour win. Chipping Norton, I do have the polling from the last one on that. So for some reason this was only up in May of this year. I don't know why it's up for by-election already, but Labour won this with 61% of the vote previously. and I expect them to hold on to this one too. Which leaves us only with the Wrekin, sorry, the Wrekin ones as well. Two in the Wrekin, or Telford in the Wrekin, I should say. I think Labour will win both of those. I had a look there; they won them comfortably previously, so expect them to win those two as well. Which just leaves us with those two Liberal Democrat councillors in Milton Keynes, and this is also quite straightforward. I think the Liberal Democrats will hold both of those. One of them, the Bradwell ward, they won by over 50% previously, and the Broughton one, they won by just under 50%. So pretty healthy leads for the Liberal Democrats, and they did very well in the general election and are still doing pretty well at the moment. So I expect them to hold on to those. So that's it. That's all the by-elections that are coming up tomorrow. We'll see what the results hold on Friday. But yeah, as I was saying, it's going to be, I think going through that, I think Labour will hold most of these. I think they might be in trouble in Kilmarnock, possibly in West Lothian to the SNP, but in England they will hold all of their seats, I think, based off of the data that I've seen, the polling that I've seen from the previous elections. But it'll be interesting to see what happens to their vote share. I mean, they may well lose the more seats in England as well, but it'll be interesting to see what happens to their vote share and to see where those votes are going. Now, we haven't really mentioned the Reform Party in this video. The areas where these by-elections are happening are not really sort of Reform target areas at the moment. Reform do have candidates standing, not in all of these, but in some of them. So it'll be interesting to see how the Reform candidates do, even in areas where Reform aren't necessarily expected to do too well. And we'll see if the trend of Reform picking up the ailing Labour vote continues into these by-elections. So that's all I've got for today. We'll have a video in another couple of days looking at the results of these by-elections. Thank you very much for watching. Do please leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Please do give me comments on how I can improve the video and the content for you, and subscribe if you wouldn't mind too. That'd be much appreciated. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.